principles which I'm going to go through are relevant to any assessment at any stage. Okay, so my examples are primary science and the pictures are primary science, but it's anything. So the project itself is funded by the Primary Science Teaching Trust. It's based here at Bath Spa Institute for Education. We work collaboratively with teachers and schools across the country. We work with the Primary Science Teaching Trust schools. We work with the Primary Science Quality Mark schools. We work with Primary Science Teaching Trust fellows who've got an award. So a whole host of people. We're going to be continuing our work looking at transition and looking at other countries. At the moment we've got examples from England, but we're going to be looking at Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland too, and making this approach relevant to lots of different places. But the aim was to provide support for teachers to assess in a valid way, a reliable way and a manageable way. And those are the three things that I want to explore. So the first one I want to look at is validity. Basically, it's, are we assessing what we want it to do? Are you actually measuring the subject that you want to measure? Is your assessment making an assessment of the subject, or are you checking whether they can read the question? Are you assessing the whole of the subject? Is it the stuff that's easily tested? Is it the stuff that's easy to check up on, do a true-false quiz at the end? Is it the whole of the subject? And for us in science, that's about working scientifically. Is it about working scientifically as well? Because one of the speakers this morning mentioned about big ideas, key ideas. I think it was Mary, actually. Mary was talking about how it's important to look at those big key ideas, those big key elements of the subject that you're looking at. Well, working scientifically skills are the big key bit. Is the assessment that you're doing actually assessing the whole of the curriculum? And that was one of the reasons for arguing against too much testing, was because it skewed the curriculum to the bits that are easily testable. Actually, assessment's only really valid if it does what it's meant to do in terms of impact. Is it actually supporting the learning? And that's where formative assessment comes in, assessment for learning. What we've tried to do with the TAPS project is to sort of encapsulate that in a model. The general gist of it is that we're trying to capture what happens in school assessments, in teacher assessment, in a way that you're summarising when you need to. You can't carry all those tiny bits of detail with you, so at what point are you summarising? Well, we want to spend most of our energy, most of our time on the pupil assessment that's going on in the classroom. So classroom formative practice, active pupils, pupils being involved in their own learning, self-assessment, peer assessment, understanding the learning objectives, all those kind of things. In the detailed version, it's lots of little boxes. So pupils being active. And the teachers in the classroom, the teachers being responsive to that. They're giving feedback, they're making a clear focus, they're asking lots of questions. Questions was again raised this morning too. And then at some point that information is going to be summarised, and hopefully it's based on a range of things. It might be that not every bit of information that you've collected across the course of the term is looked at. You might not be looking, for example, at their first thought shower that they did in September and judging their end result on that, but maybe you're using that to help you explain how much progress they've made, and you're trying to gather a range of information from a range of contexts, which in a range of ways really. So it's about that broadening idea of how we're assessing in primary schools and beyond. Reliability is another tricky issue, and for our TAPS teachers this was the one that most of the schools spent time working on. So they looked hard at, or they were really worried about whether they were doing it consistently, and that's very understandable with a new curriculum coming in at the time when we were just first running the project. So what does it look like for them to have got that? This developing an understanding of consistency and that shared understanding has been a really key player in lots of the schools. So I want to share a couple of examples with you, but shared understanding again has come out from lots and lots of the talks I've seen today so far as something that's really important, ways of the staff working together. So trying to develop a shared understanding of two things: the subject that you're looking at and the of assessment itself. So trying to develop an understanding of assessment. Some of our schools, for example, have taken this and looked and seen which bits are happening in the classroom. So we've got one school that they use it in lesson observations, and they try and work out, well, which bits are you doing today? Which bits could we work on? Other schools are trying to develop a shared understanding by developing something which will support all the staff at the same time. And an example of that is moderation discussions. Now, that moderation discussions could happen anywhere, and that's the main way of making teacher assessment more reliable, more consistent, having more confidence in it, is that you have discussions about it, like we're doing today, but also it could be just after the lesson, during the lesson, it could be with the children, it could be with peers, it could be wherever. But the example here is from a school in Weston-super-Mare who they had they didn't feel like they had a good understanding of, as a staff, they didn't feel like they knew very well what it looked like for children to get better in working scientifically. So everybody bought some work from the different year groups and they laid it on a big long roll of wallpaper, and the teacher, Kate Porter, called it a graffiti wall. And so she laid all the different bits of work out, and the teachers had a look. And they looked and they saw gaps maybe, they saw what was missing. I know when I did this in my school a few years ago, we didn't have a piece of wallpaper or call it a graffiti wall, but we laid them all out and we saw, oh, hang on, that's why my year 5 children can't draw tables, because until year 4, they've always had a printed table, that kind of thing. So you can spot things across, and it just had everyone talking together. The children's work being laid out in this way could show progress, but it could also show where we need to work on next. And it gave the staff a way of talking about it together that was non-threatening. It was not like when you go to the moderation meetings and you're sort of going, is this right? And you're sort of almost, I don't want to show mine just in case someone says that it's higher or lower than I thought it was going to be, that kind of thing. I remember those when you were doing writing moderations and stuff. But this is different. This is, okay, what have we got here? What skill? Oh, hang on, no one ever gets to the conclusion. Oh my goodness, we need to spend a term doing on that and a focus on that. Another way of doing this, which some schools in South Gloucestershire were having a go at last term, was having a go at doing something all together as a staff or as subject leaders all together, having a go at an activity and then trying it out in class, and then bringing the children's recordings all together. So it might be, for example, that you've got a practical activity going on, and on a whole school day, everyone does that activity, and then they bring the results all together and see, have we got progress going on here? Is there progression through the school? It develops a shared understanding of the subject, in this case working scientifically, but it also develops a shared understanding of what assessment is about, that we're trying to push the children's learning forward. Oh, and my butterfly, I've not mentioned the butterfly yet, which is one of the schools in Bristol found that they're working scientifically. The reason that they couldn't have an open discussion about it was because they didn't actually call it science. They called it inquiry, they called it a topic. So their topic approach is lovely because it links everything together, but it didn't help a discussion about working scientifically skills. So they said, oh, hang on, we need to make this more visible for everybody. We need to create a tool which helps us to see what's going on, and so when and it also helps them to focus their lessons. So today we're all going to be doing about this particular objective, and the children might colour it in. These are on the walls at the moment in the classrooms, and they're seeing whether that works. Because all of this and all of the things that you've been sharing today, it's all about trialling. It's all about trying something out and seeing, well, does that work? And most people in a couple of the sessions were saying, well, we tried this, we've tweaked it this way, we've realised this is not working. And that's, I think, how we answer the last question. How do we make this manageable? Well, all of us are trying this at the same time, and this is what Learning First sharing is all about. We're all going to be putting stuff on the website. We're all going to be tweeting about it and explaining what we're trying. And if you pick up an idea, well, maybe you try that one too, and then someone else passes it on. Now, because this is a funded research project, then we're really lucky. We've got a website to chuck stuff on, and I can say that it went the database went live in the summer. So we've got now a database on the Primary Science Teaching Trust website, which has, at the moment, 128 things on there. I want to double that by next year, please. So if you've got things that you're doing, do send them to us. The information that's here is searchable or filterable by topic and age group and things like that, and they are science examples, they're science plans of particular activities, looking at what it might look like to have got there or not got there yet. these are examples of different ways of recording. So lots of people have talked about book scrutiny, and anyone from Key Stage 1 teaching Year 1 or early years foundation stage may be sitting going, well, book scrutiny, I'm not sure I can show much progress in my books because my children don't write a lot. So we've got lots of teachers exploring, well, how else can you do that? There's floor books being made together, video clips, all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to gather as many examples so that then it will give you ideas and support too. The other thing about manageability is to try and get that focus clear. Maybe that links to everything else as well, because to make it valid, you've got a real focus on a particular subject, a particular area, and to make it reliable, it's really clear which bit of the objective you're focusing on. But also to make it manageable, we need to choose a focus. You can't assess everything all the time, and you can't change everything all the time. So this works at lots of levels. So if you're a classroom teacher here today, trying to work out what to do next, well, maybe you look at our pyramid if you want to. It's downloadable and free and all that kind of stuff. You just have a look and see what is on there that we're not doing yet, and choose one thing to try out. If you're a head teacher sitting here and has a whole school at your disposal, yay, then which bit of it is the bit that you want to work on? And our TAP schools and other schools around the country have been testing this out as a self-evaluation tool. So they look and go, well, we can do this, yep, that's okay, or this bit's the bit. Most people actually have been developing different ways of moderating and different ways of getting a shared understanding of assessment and a shared understanding of the subject. Some schools have chosen particular things to work on, like peer assessment and things like that. But by gathering their examples of the things they're doing, then it's hopefully helpful to other people, and gathering ideas of different ways of recording, not feeling that you need to write everything out, just an exit card as you go out of the door. That's this one up here, an exit card saying, I used to think this, and now I think this because, and that's it. That's all they're writing, that they did that whole lesson. Or they spoke that into an easy speak. Or they went on a weedy welly walk, and when they got back with their weed, which had roots on, then they've had to go at labelling it together as a group. So just lots of different ideas, different ways of doing it, which aren't necessarily a snapshot, testy type thing, or aren't necessarily all about writing in the books. So hopefully that's given a little flavour of some of the stuff that's online, but also got thinking about drawing together the ideas of, is it valid, is it assessing what we want it to, is it reliable, do we all agree about it, and how can we develop that in our school, and if it's not manageable, then we're definitely not going to be doing it.